Hey guys, the Bow here with 2 shots 1 kill, and in this video I just wanted to go over with you installing the Action Army Zero Trigger and a couple of things which I found while installing it in my VSR-10. Now, most things should be a straight swap over. I remember with the LayLax Zero Trigger, for example, with the VSR-10 and with the Tokyo Maru VSR as well, it was literally a straight swap. It went straight in, no problems whatsoever. I actually did this today and I actually encountered some problems which I want to explain when I'm doing the trigger unit with you guys in video. So basically this is the Action Army Zero Trigger. It's a one-piece trigger unit with a spring guide stopper. We've got a 90-degree piston sear and a very light trigger pull. It's very nice. It's pretty much an exact copy of the LayLax Zero Trigger from what I can remember. It doesn't come with any instructions, which isn't a problem because it's pretty straightforward to install, and I've done it before a couple of times with the LayLax ones. The piston, however, is a little bit different to the LayLax one. It has a O-ring on the top, as you can see, which obviously acts as a cushion compared to the LayLax one, which is very similar to the original piston, which was a straight edge with an air brake, optional air brake. So we had a grub screw, or we had an air brake which you can screw into the inside of that. This one doesn't give you that option. It's literally just a straight end, and then obviously we've got the 90-degree piston end at the end here as well. So that's the piston that comes with the Zero Trigger, and then you've got the 2 screws to screw it to the receiver. Now, with the Zero Trigger, we actually need to take apart this rear end here. There's 2 screws, one here and on the other side here, and this mounting block here needs to be mounted to the rear of the receiver before we can actually fit the trigger in. So I'm just going to put these bits to the side, and I'm going to take apart the trigger unit on the existing rifle here. We can see that I've literally just taken the top half of the rifle off from the stock, and that's all I've done. I'm not going to remove the scope or the outer barrel. There's absolutely no need to do any of that. And if you've got your scope zeroed in, you know, removing your scope and then putting it back on is a waste of time, because you've got to re-zero it again. So to get started, obviously we need to remove the trigger guard from the unit, and then we need to remove these 2 screws and the spring guide stopper. So what we're going to do, we're going to remove the spring guide stopper first. That's this piece here. I'm just going to quickly slide out the cylinder, and then we're going to remove this trigger unit here. Okay, so that's the trigger unit removed. We don't need that anymore. We can probably bin that or do whatever you want with it. Keep it for spares in case for some reason the Zero Trigger fails on you, which I highly doubt it will. I had the LayLax Zero Trigger, which lasted me probably about 4 years. I had it. One of them, the longest older one, was probably about 4 years old, because I started off with sears, which were a little bit stiff. Okay, so what we can do now, we can actually do the cylinder bit as well while we're here. Now, to remove the cylinder head on a VSR-10 is quite easy. It's not pinned. On a Tokyo Maru cylinder, there's actually a pin holding the cylinder head to the cylinder, which makes it a little bit difficult. You have to get a drill the pin out so you can then undo the cylinder head. Now, you'll see people with pliers and masking tape and all kinds of little fancy gadgets or even little tools to undo these, but it's really quite simple. All you need is an Allen key that will fit in the hole in the end here, and we simply need to use it. So we got the lengthways, put it in a hole, rest it against like that, just hold it like that, use our hand to position and get the leverage, and we can literally just unscrew it. There's no need for any tools, any fancy taping up pliers. We can literally just unscrew it like that, and then we can just unscrew the cylinder head. Take, obviously, the original piston and spring. I'm also replacing the spring guide in this video, so I'm just going to take the whole lot out, put it over here. I've got my new spring guide. I got Action Army one again. I've got a VSR-10 170 spring, which has been trimmed down slightly to give me just under 500 feet per second. And then obviously we're going to slide our spring into our piston, like so. And then I'm going to slide that into the cylinder. And we're going to screw our cylinder head back on. Just make sure you get your threads right. And then again, with the Allen key, you put it the other way around this time, get that leverage, and tighten. Perfect, that's done. We can now see we've got our 90-degree piston, our new spring, and spring guide. Now, with the zero trigger, the things I'm going to point out right away is, I don't know if it's just the tolerances between the JG Bar 10 and the Action Army, because like I said, the LayLax zero trigger didn't have any problems with installing that on a JG Bar 10. That was 7 years ago, 8 years ago now maybe, so maybe things have changed in the quality control. But I actually had to file this area here. I had to make it wider. It wasn't straight, it was an angle. It wasn't particularly great, and what was happening was the spring guide stopper was getting stuck in that area there. It wouldn't go up properly, it was just getting stuck in that area, and that obviously caused problems trying to get the spring guide stopper in and out. That wasn't the only thing I encountered either. The spring guide stopper was also too big for in here. I'll put a picture up in just a second, but basically in the back of the cylinder there is a groove that the spring guide stopper goes in, and what was happening was that would go in the groove and it would only go in so far, and then what would happen is I would cock the rifle, I would fire the rifle, and the impact of that hitting the back would basically jam the spring guide stopper into the back of the cylinder, and I literally you just couldn't pull it again. You had to take the whole thing apart, take out the all the internals of the cylinder, and I had to get pliers to basically wiggle and pull the spring guide stopper out of there, because it was just literally just jammed so much. So what I actually had to do is I had to take a file to the spring guide stopper and just make it slightly pointed, and basically bring it into, like, you know, just slightly thin at the top and taper it out, because when I looked at the inside over here, it wasn't straight. Again, it's just, I don't know if it's just the tolerances and the quality control on these units have just gone downhill, but I swear they weren't this bad when I used one about 7 or 8 years ago. So just bear that in mind. If before you put things together, you might also want to check to make sure that the actual spring guide stopper fits flush inside there, and again at the back without any problems. It should just be easy to slide in and slide out. Okay, so the next step is now to attach this trigger unit to the receiver. And like I said, we need to undo these two screws at the back here, so we just need to use the Allen key to do that. Cool. And then we've got our mounting block. Now, we've got one of our screws here. Mounting block goes at the back with the fat bit facing away, so the screws are closer to the these screw holes at the end here are closer to this bit here. You'll see that when that goes on, that will all line up perfectly. So we're just going to screw this in. Again, these are Allen key bolts, not screw head, so we need to use an Allen key to do that. Cool. We can then slide into place. We can then do the two screws, fit on the side, line it up. Cool. And then we just need to put the front screw in as well. Cool. Alright, trigger mech's now attached to the unit. Now you might remember with the old trigger mech, on this side there was a little thing we could pull down so the pistons here would drop and allow us to push the cylinder in. On the zero trigger we haven't got that option, so what we actually need to do, I'll slide it in this way, is in here we've got this piece here, and if we push that forward like so, that actually pushes the piston sear out of the way. So we're going to start by pushing Okay, so once that's in, once you've got the front of the cylinder in, make sure obviously the spring guide stopper is out, push it all the way down, and then push the spring guide stopper up, and you can see that's now fit into place. Last thing you need to do is actually cut the trigger guard. So if we look on here, we can see this trigger guard has been cut. Basically, as soon as that notch starts, I'll be a photo on the screen now showing you before and after. And once that's been cut, obviously that will then fit and sit on there perfectly fine. So last step, screwdriver, and just screw the trigger guard into place. Cool. And there we go. That's how to install the Action Army Zero trigger. You've now got that installed and ready to use.